All right, let's dive into one of the most intense and, honestly, pivotal moments in the entire book of Exodus. But this isn't a story about plagues or parting seas. No, this is a story about a deep relational crisis between God and the very people he had just rescued. I want you to just kind of hang on to that question as we walk through this, because this is the exact spot the ancient Israelites found themselves in, right there at the foot of Mount Sinai. They were promised this incredible new land, but they were literally on the verge of losing the guide who promised it to them in the first place. So, to really get what's happening here, we have to understand what the real problem was. And according to biblical scholar Dr. John Oswalt, the story of Exodus isn't just about escaping physical slavery. It's much deeper than that. And this idea? Well, it changes everything, doesn't it? We tend to think the problem was slavery in Egypt, but the text is pointing to something much more fundamental: their separation, their alienation from God. You see, the point of the whole Exodus wasn't just to get the people out of Egypt, it was to bring them to God. And this is where it all just goes completely off the rails. While Moses is up on the mountain literally getting the instructions for how God could come and live among them, the people down below get impatient and build a golden calf. Now, this wasn't just some innocent mistake. It was a massive betrayal. It was basically them saying, we'd rather have a God we can see and control. And that single act, it triggers a total relational meltdown. The fallout from this betrayal is, well, it's immediate and it is harsh. God makes an announcement that is just absolutely stunning. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. God basically says, okay, you can have the gift, this amazing land I promised, but you're not getting me, the giver. He's going to keep his promise about the land, but his personal presence will not be going with them. This right here, this is the absolute heart of the crisis. And that brings us right back to our big question. What do you choose? The amazing destination or the relationship with the one who made the promise? This is the choice staring the Israelites right in the face. And let's be honest, it's a choice that kind of echoes through all of our lives too. So with the relationship completely shattered, one person steps into that massive gap: Moses. He becomes the mediator, the go-between, the one who just desperately tries to stitch this broken connection back together. And you can actually see this painful new distance in a physical way. Moses sets up a temporary tent of meeting, but he has to put it outside the camp. Remember, the original plan was for a permanent tabernacle right in the center of everyone. God's presence is now removed, it's separate, and it's a powerful symbol of that alienation. Now, this is the core of Moses' argument. He basically tells God, look, I would rather stay in this miserable desert with you than go into that perfect promised land without you. For Moses, the relationship is the prize. It's not the real estate. Okay, so this passionate, desperate plea from Moses, it pushes the story to its absolute climax. This whole crisis forces a moment of stunning revelation, not about the people, but about the very nature of God himself. So Moses makes this huge ask. He says, show me your glory, which basically means, let me see your raw, unfiltered, divine essence. And God's response is so important. He says, in essence, no one can see my full glory and live, but I will show you my goodness. I'll reveal my character to you. And it turns out what Moses hears is way more important than what he sees. God proclaims his own character, his name. And get this description of who he is becomes one of the most quoted self-disclosures of God in the entire Old Testament. This is God, in his own words, telling us who he is. Right. And then we hit this part. And honestly, this line can be a real head-scratcher. After all that incredible grace and mercy, we get this. It seems to completely contradict everything that just came before it. I mean, what kind of God punishes kids for what their parents did? Well, Dr. Oswalt helps us make sense of this. He explains that this isn't about God randomly zapping innocent children. It's a statement about the cold, hard reality of consequences. Forgiveness from God doesn't magically erase the ripple effects of our actions in the world. Think about it. A father's addiction can cause trauma that impacts his children and even his grandchildren for generations, even if that father is completely forgiven. It's a warning. Don't take this grace for granted because sin has real, lasting, generational impact. This profound revelation of God's character, this mix of incredible grace and serious justice, it changes the entire game.
It resolves the crisis and puts the relationship between God and Israel on a totally new foundation. So their sacred agreement, their covenant, it gets renewed. But this time, it's not a two-way contract based on whether the people can perfectly follow the rules. It's a one-sided promise from God, based on His own declared character of compassion and forgiveness. The relationship is basically refounded entirely on grace. And the story wraps up with this just unbelievable image. When Moses comes back down the mountain after this encounter with God's true character, his own face is literally shining so brightly that he has to wear a veil. It's a physical sign of a spiritual reality. A true, genuine encounter with the divine changes you. It makes you reflect a piece of that glory. Which, it leaves us with this big question to chew on. This ancient story is all about the idea that seeing God's face, really understanding His true character, is completely transformative. So the question for us today is, what does that look like now? In a world that is so noisy and distracting, what might it actually mean to encounter the character of God? And how might that change the way we live?